In a peculiar scene from the Turkish drama Valley of the Wolves, the protagonist appears with a call to prayer eerily played in reverse in the background. This moment passed unnoticed by thousands of viewers, but it did not escape the scrutiny of researchers, the awakened, conspiracy theorists, or whatever name one may choose to call them. These individuals paused at this strange scene and questioned whether such an act was permissible or religiously forbidden, and what its purpose might be. Could this moment be considered one of the subliminal messages, those camouflage cues that media embeds to target the subconscious, seeking to manipulate and control it, or guide it toward adopting a specific worldview or idea without awareness? Before delving into this matter in search of a convincing answer, we must first understand a few fundamental concepts. Chief among them, what are subliminal messages? What purpose do they serve? Why are they directed at the subconscious? And what exactly is the subconscious mind? Let us begin by establishing the distinction between the mind and the brain. The brain is a physical entity, a mass of cells responsible for regulating bodily functions. The mind, on the other hand, is an immaterial component that relies on the brain's physical structure to operate in a sequence of complex processes, similar to how an operating system functions through the hardware of a computer. Scientists have classified the human mind into 4 levels: the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, the unconscious mind, and the cosmic consciousness or morphogenic field. It is worth noting that this classification is debated. Some scholars group the subconscious and unconscious together, while others argue that the morphogenetic field or cosmic consciousness is merely a philosophical construct lacking scientific validation. Let us now attempt to explain these concepts as succinctly as possible in order to reach our aims swiftly. The first level of the mind is the conscious mind, which we use for calculations, logical reasoning, judgment, interpretation, and decision-making. It functions through deduction and inference and serves as the storehouse of knowledge and cognitive faculties, including awareness, thought, language, memory, and other mental activities that can be cultivated, measured, and analyzed. The conscious mind also possesses abilities such as imagination, discernment, assessment, and the processing of feelings, emotions, and impulses, processes that can often be tracked, analyzed, and sometimes even measured, despite our lack of full comprehension of their essence. In short, we utilize the conscious mind during wakefulness to perform various cognitive tasks with the aim of solving problems, making judgments, or arriving at decisions. Its capabilities are shaped by the knowledge a person acquires throughout life. Although numerous theories explore the nature of the mind, they can largely be distilled into 2 main schools of thought. The first is the religious theory, which emphasizes the connection between mind and soul, viewing the mind as the divine essence of the human self. The second is the scientific theory, which considers the mind a phenomenon of psychology and a synonym for consciousness. There is also debate regarding the structure of the mind and the components that constitute it. Some argue that higher functions such as memory and reasoning form the core of the mind, while emotions are seen as primitive, instinctual elements unrelated to it. Others view the rational and emotional faculties as an inseparable unity. Therefore, the mind may be considered either a divine essence or a material phenomenon. In the 18th century, the Irish philosopher George Berkeley introduced the theory of immaterialism, also known as subjective idealism. In it, he denied the material existence of objects, proposing instead that familiar things, buildings, cups, tables, chairs, and the like, exist only as ideas in the mind of God, with no existence independent of perception. It seems the creators of the Matrix film were well acquainted with this man. However, scientists rejected and criticized this extreme theory. In the 19th century, Thomas Henry Huxley presented a modern interpretation, drawing on the views of the English mathematician and philosopher Thomas Hobbes. Huxley posited that mental processes are the result of physical operations, thereby linking the brain with the mind. In simpler terms, mental activity and its capabilities are dependent on the brain cells. In the early 20th century, the renowned Austrian physician Sigmund Freud introduced the theory of the subconscious mind, proposing that conscious mental processes constitute only a small fragment of our actual cognitive operations. He suggested that the human mind harbors a hidden realm beyond our awareness, one that we cannot control or access except through psychoanalysis and the interpretation of dreams. In doing so, Freud bridged the essentialist view of the mind with the scientific perspective. Despite facing criticism from scientists for the unverifiability and lack of empirical grounding in his theory, it gained widespread popularity, especially in light of the tremendous scientific advancements that unfolded during the 20th and 21st centuries, including the advent of rudimentary artificial minds and eventually sophisticated artificial intelligence. Freud's synthesis was widely accepted, resting on a compelling hypothesis. If mental activity were purely a physical process, humanity would have already created machines capable of human-like cognition. Yet, this has not come to pass. Despite the remarkable progress of artificial intelligence, it has not attained self-awareness, nor is it expected to, according to many scholars. This is because mental activity is not merely the product of cellular operations, chemical reactions, and electrical signals. It is something far more intricate and profound. Thus, the conscious mind is what we employ during wakefulness to perform logical and arithmetic tasks, yet its capabilities are limited, particularly in terms of memory. Memory is a complex process that allows us to store and retrieve information, and it relies heavily on attention. What we fail to notice, we cannot retain or recall. This is the principal reason we are unable to remember every event or detail that occurs even within a single day. Typically, we retain only two categories of events: those we consciously focus on and decide to memorize, and those tied to emotional experiences. Events that elicit sadness, joy, disgust, love, or hatred are etched into memory. According to psychologists, this explains why women are often able to recall small details. Emotion plays a more significant role in their memory than it does in men's. For this reason, educators often advise students to associate emotionally resonant elements with difficult-to-remember information, as emotion helps anchor knowledge and memory. The conscious mind's capacity for attention and storage is inherently finite. Therefore, we only retain significant knowledge or notable events. But what are the countless minor occurrences and incidental pieces of information that pass us by unnoticed, or are deliberately ignored? Do they vanish into oblivion, or are they archived somewhere deeper, within the subconscious? Consider the act of climbing the stairs of your home, workplace, or any familiar building. The first time you do so, you observe the steps carefully before taking your initial stride. At that moment, the conscious mind calculates the height and approximate number of steps, storing this information for subsequent use. On your second, third, and fourth attempts, you ascend more confidently. Eventually, you discover that you can ascend or descend the stairs effortlessly, without even looking, perhaps even in the dark. The same phenomenon occurs when learning to ride a bicycle, a motorbike, or a car, or in forming repeated habits. This process provides compelling evidence for the existence of the subconscious. With repetition, the conscious mind transfers the related data to another mental repository to conserve its limited storage capacity. This repository is the subconscious or unconscious mind. It resides at a deeper level than the conscious mind and possesses capabilities far superior in terms of memory retention and decision-making. Unlike the conscious mind, it does not rely solely on accessible information but actively processes that information, executing complex cognitive functions such as perception, memory, learning, and thought at astonishing speeds. Some scholars argue that the subconscious plays a crucial role in cognitive functioning, outperforming the conscious mind due to its ability to collect and analyze data more rapidly and utilize it in decision-making processes. In essence, it serves as the true latent power that drives the conscious mind. As previously mentioned, the conscious mind is limited in its ability to focus and store, whereas the subconscious is boundless. It can absorb every fleeting detail and subtle environmental cue, recording them into deep memory without requiring any conscious involvement. Despite the ongoing debate among scholars regarding the nature of the subconscious mind and the mechanisms through which it operates, they have succeeded in formulating and testing various hypotheses, among them the illusion of truth effect. This hypothesis suggests that individuals are more likely to accept a piece of information as true during a discussion if they have encountered it before, even briefly or without conscious attention. This theory, first tested by psychologists in 1977, later became the cornerstone of what is now known as the war of subliminal messaging, covert communication intended to bypass conscious awareness. But before we step onto the battlefield of this psychological warfare, let us continue our exploration of the third mind, the deepest stratum beneath the subconscious. We have seen that the conscious mind is the center of perception, while the subconscious stores memories and desires. Thoughts, events, and pieces of information that merely graze the surface of conscious awareness are not discarded but rather embedded within the depths of the subconscious, subtly guiding beliefs, emotions, judgments, and decisions, often without our conscious realization. This was the framework set forth by Freud. However, the Swiss psychologist Carl Gustav Jung went even further, subdividing the subconscious or unconscious into two distinct realms, the personal unconscious and the collective unconscious. The personal unconscious is composed of memories and experiences unique to an individual. The collective unconscious, on the other hand, encompasses the shared memories and experiences of the entire human race, transmitted across generations and even experienced simultaneously by members of the same generation. Building on the foundation of the collective unconscious, British biologist Alfred Rupert Sheldrake developed one of the most intriguing and unconventional modern theories, the Morphogenic Field, also referred to as the cosmic mind. In this theory, Sheldrake proposed that the human brain is not the repository of knowledge itself, but rather a conduit to a grander mind, a universal consciousness in which all human knowledge, experiences, and insights are continuously stored. In this view, every human mind is connected to a central consciousness, much like a network of personal computers linked to a massive server. He likened the mind to a television set that receives electromagnetic signals and displays an image, though it is not the source of the broadcast. To substantiate his theory, Sheldrake conducted a number of experiments. One such experiment involved presenting a puzzle on the British Broadcasting Network (BBC), which he then solved on air. Simultaneously, his team introduced a different puzzle to random individuals on city streets and solved that as well. The first puzzle became widely known to millions of viewers, while the second was known only to a small group. Later, Sheldrake's team traveled to remote regions of the world beyond the reach of BBC broadcasts and presented both puzzles to local populations. The results showed that people were significantly more successful at solving the first puzzle than the second. From this, Sheldrake concluded that the more individuals are exposed to or involved in a specific idea or piece of knowledge, the stronger the collective consciousness becomes around it, and the greater its influence on the human mind. It sounds like a mad idea, doesn't it? This theory has indeed faced fierce opposition from the scientific community, which has dismissed Rupert Sheldrake's research as pseudoscience. Nevertheless, the theory is supported by numerous observations, among them the remarkable ease with which young children interact with modern devices. If you were to gift your grandfather a smartphone, you would likely endure a great struggle to teach him how to use it. Meanwhile, your toddler, barely 3 or 4 years old, can handle the same device with astonishing ease. He opens YouTube, uses voice search, browses through content, and even knows how to skip ads, all without anyone teaching him. The explanation offered is that the universal mind assists him, as this knowledge is stored within it. Another curious observation raised by some is that older generations rarely see smartphones in their dreams, while those born after their widespread adoption encounter them in their dreams naturally. It is said that the reason lies in how deeply integrated smartphones have become in the daily lives of younger generations, a familiar presence, unlike with older ones. These are no more than suggestive clues that fall short of constituting proof. Thus, the true nature of the subconscious mind remains a mystery, and its hidden power even greater. What is certain, however, is that this power is a double-edged sword. Dozens, if not hundreds, of books, studies, and training programs encourage people to feed their subconscious with knowledge and ideas, believing it to be far more potent than the conscious mind. These strategies involve training the subconscious to steer behavior and judgment in the right direction. That is one edge of the sword. The other emerges when a person remains unaware of the immense power of their subconscious, making it susceptible to manipulation through countless methods, tricks, and psychological devices, among them framing and subliminal stimuli. Media framing refers to the focus on a specific part of a larger picture, concealing the rest to subtly influence and stimulate the subconscious. No one can deny the staggering ability of the media machine to shape the subconscious into sympathizing with criminals and condemning the innocent. This very machine painted the genocide of Native Americans as a civilizing mission, the U.S. assault on Vietnam as a humanitarian act, the Iraqi people as insurgents, the Palestinians as terrorists, and Muslims as killers and butchers. Conversely, it depicted Jews as heroes saving the world or as helpless victims of Nazi tyranny. Thus, the deceptive mirror of media crafts a mental image that lodges itself deep in the subconscious, even within its victims, compelling it to adopt beliefs and myths as if they were absolute truths. These images are repeated incessantly until the eyes are blinded to reality, no matter how clear it may be. Framing, however, does not act alone. It thrives in the soil of ignorance. An ignorant nation is easily invaded ideologically. The minds of its youth are destroyed through the promotion of sexual deviance as natural, moral decay as personal freedom, and the denial of God as intellectual trendiness. Along this path, we eventually encounter those who proclaim, "I believe in science," as if science has become a deity to be worshipped instead of God, or as though true science somehow negates his existence. We also find those who fall prey to fallacies, arguing that Arabs and Muslims are backward because of their faith, and the West is advanced because they are non-believers. The conclusion? Religion causes backwardness. And so, the parrots of deceptive media repeat this conclusion endlessly to dulled minds until it is etched into the subconscious, whereas the truth is precisely the opposite. When Arabs and Muslims adhered to their religion, they ruled the world. They fell behind only when they abandoned its essence and busied themselves with its superficialities. These are but scattered examples of how framing successfully deceives minds. As for subconscious stimuli, they are images or sounds presented either in encrypted form or in the background of a scene for an extremely brief moment, sometimes as short as 1/100th of a second. In both cases, the conscious mind cannot notice or perceive them, yet they lodge in the subconscious and act as stimuli known as subliminal or masked messages. These messages, whether visual or auditory, are difficult to identify consciously, yet they penetrate the subconscious as internal commands aimed at embedding specific ideas. Their effectiveness hinges on repetition. Notably, most of these messages target children before adults, either to inject negativity or to shape and guide their still-forming minds. These messages teach them from a young age to perceive the illogical as logical, the abnormal as normal, and the immoral as acceptable and even desirable. Despite the lack of solid scientific evidence confirming these messages, and despite some dismissing them as mere conspiracy theory, their observable presence raises suspicion. Examples abound across films, dramas, music, advertisements, and every medium that reaches the human senses. The short animated film My Pet Go 2 stands as one of the most prominent examples of encrypted messaging. Countless researchers have dissected its dense array of hidden symbols in an attempt to unravel the meanings it may conceal. From the outset, the film's title suggests a sequel, despite no known prequel ever being released, as if the narrative continues an unseen, veiled chapter in human history. Spanning merely 7 minutes, the film unfolds like a prophetic chronicle of the future. A brief search into its interpretations reveals surprisingly logical and coherent analyses. Yet, there remain 2 subtle points that, to the best of our knowledge, have escaped deeper scrutiny. The film, released in 2012, concludes with the image of a church collapsing. Strikingly, this church bears an uncanny resemblance to the historic Notre Dame Cathedral, which famously caught fire and partially collapsed 7 years later, in April 2019. The most astonishing aspect isn't merely that the event was foretold, but that the cathedral's fall mirrored the imagery presented in the film. Another sequence depicts the ascension of a man clad in Sufi garments rising from the ruins of a bombed mosque dome, an apparent allegory for the spiritual resurgence of Islam in the end times, following efforts to annihilate it. Do they truly possess knowledge of the unseen? Please don't be so naive. These aren't predictions but calculated schemes, visions built upon profound knowledge of religions, particularly Islam, and its eschatological narratives. Their aim is not to unveil these plans to the masses, but rather to instill despair and a sense of helplessness, portraying themselves as omniscient deities beyond challenge. And who dares confront gods? Another example of subliminal messaging lies in a Pepsi advertisement aired on Egyptian television during Ramadan of 2013. On the surface, it appeared to be a typical commercial for Pepsi's soft drinks. Yet, some analysts revealed it was laden with veiled messages. One such scene featured a young man walking through a hallway adorned with lanterns, which was interpreted as an allusion to a cryptic corridor of tombs. What followed in Egypt, widespread violence claiming the lives of hundreds of youths, adds an eerie weight to these symbolic interpretations. These are but drops from a vast ocean. Some may dismiss them as coincidences, delusions, or conspiracy-fueled hysteria. However, they serve as mental alarm bells, especially when one pays attention to the accompanying music, its frequencies, and the psychological effects it induces. Examples of subliminal audiovisual messages are nearly limitless. They include words subtly embedded in visuals that escape the conscious mind. The most iconic of these is the word sex. In the first part of this book, we examine how this word appeared etched in clouds above the only alleged authentic, full image of Earth, the Big Blue Marble, as presented by NASA. The same word can be found on the landing page of the social media giant Facebook, in animated films, and in advertisements, either explicitly or through suggestive words, images, and symbols. The objective is always the same: programming the subconscious to normalize sexuality and perversion, or to glorify satanic figures and motifs. Furthermore, there are cryptic spoken phrases, utterances at specific frequencies that bypass the conscious mind, communicating directly with the subconscious in a different language of interpretation. For example, what is this voice saying?
Just raise it! Just raise it! Just raise it! Just raise it!
Listen again, and you'll discern a phrase that may carry up to 8 distinct interpretations. A single utterance, yet it resonates differently each time. Did you notice? This is the concept of ambiguous speech, akin to innuendo or double entendre, where a sentence or word carries both an apparent and a hidden meaning. The conscious mind perceives the obvious, while the subconscious grasps the veiled, often overriding conscious thought. Such insidious methods are frequently cloaked in humor or comedic formats, diminishing the brain's defenses. They might even deliberately omit part of a sentence, compelling the brain to instinctively fill in the blanks, a task the subconscious undertakes with ease. This technique is not limited to audio. Visually, it appears in a rising trend of artwork that begins as a graphic sexual scene, gradually morphing into something mundane. But by then, the subconscious has already received the intended corrupt message. Last but not least, we come to reverse messaging, phrases or lyrics that sound normal when played forward, yet reveal an entirely different meaning when reversed. This tactic is often used in music, a medium that is easily memorized and repeated. These songs are typically accompanied by specific musical tones engineered to influence the subconscious, while the conscious mind remains blissfully unaware. Consider this doll, for instance.
Let's just let it go. Let me let you. And I can lie, say I like it like that, like it like that.
She says a seemingly ordinary sentence, but when reversed, the phrase becomes, and it doesn't take genius to deduce the intended target of elimination. In a similar fashion, the Adhan was played in reverse in a Turkish series, possibly as a rare instance of a positive message, as if the creators had chosen to wield the enemy's weapon against him. Or perhaps it held a more ominous implication. No one can state with certainty what the reversed Adhan signifies in that particular context, or what purpose it was meant to serve. Yet what is vital is that we remain conscious of the existence of such messages, so we do not permit anyone to infiltrate our subconscious and reprogram it to act against us. As previously mentioned, examples of framing, subliminal cues, and covert messages are too numerous to count. However, a simple search using the term subliminal messages or backmasking messages will unveil hundreds of them. This is a code of a most insidious and diabolical kind, targeting the subconscious, the silent governor of the conscious mind, implanting calculated messages designed to propagate obscenity, depravity, perversion, atheism, and every force that might sever humanity from the pure nature instilled in them by God. It fosters darkness and negative energy in preparation for the arrival of their Savior, the Antichrist they await, generation after generation, preparing the world for his reign with all the power at their disposal. They are fully aware that he will not emerge until there is a fading of religion and a retreat of knowledge, until true religion and true science vanish or are on the brink of vanishing. They know he shall not appear until people cease to mention him, and even the preachers on the pulpits no longer speak of him. Do you still believe all of this is mere coincidence, hallucination, delusional conspiracy mongering? So be it. The enchantment of glittering images is powerful indeed. In ancient times, chastity was a stigma among some people who said, "Expel the family of Lot from your city." Indeed, they are people who keep themselves pure. If you remain unconvinced, that's understandable. This drug runs deep, and no cry can awaken one who chooses the comfort of slumber. Dear viewer, did you notice our hidden message, flashing on the screen for just a fraction of a second, disappearing, and then reappearing 10 times?